We're called to be disciples. Yes, we're supposed to be Christians making Christians. But I kind of bring that into the film industry as a disciple is someone who learns, and making a disciple is someone who teaches. So we should always be learning, reaching forward, and we should always be teaching, reaching back. So get into the habit of giving something to someone else and quit focusing on what it's going to do for you.
This is the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast, helping filmmakers who share a Christian worldview stay in touch, informed, and inspired.
Quiet on set. Rolling.
Today's host is Geoffrey Whitt.
Welcome to the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. I'm Jeff, and I'm happy to be with you today and to have our special guest, John Goad. John is an actor, voice actor, and actor coach with over 35 years' experience in theater, film, television, commercials, and audiobooks. He's received training from the likes of Harold Guskin and Tom Todoroff, among others. John is now a much sought-after coach for actors himself, being featured at ICFF and other film conferences. He focuses his talents solely on the faith-based industry currently. Look for him as Bebe in the upcoming feature film, Empty Nets. John lives in Houston, Texas, and is the proud father of 8 children. He serves his church as an integral part of their media ministry. Welcome, John.
Hi.
Hey, good to see you again.
Good seeing you too, brother.
John and I spent some time together on the set of Empty Nets. John was part of the cast, of course, and I was a production assistant and really enjoyed the time there, not only on set, but of course we kind of stayed on location in the accommodations that they had there, so got to spend some time together.
Yeah, it was nice. It was good times.
Yeah. So John, I'd like to start today by looking at a little bit of your history and how you got started in acting in general. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
It's actually kind of a funny story. I have not always been wanting to be in front of people. I'll put it that way. In 8th grade, I had to get up in front of my English class and do a book report. And I passed out. I fainted. I was so nervous about being in front of people. Yeah, literally passed out. I was just a mess on the floor. And when I came to, my English teacher was standing over me and suggested that I take some speech and drama courses next year in high school to get over that stage fright, because it was crippling. It was debilitating. And I thought that was a good idea because I didn't want to do that again. It was really embarrassing. Anyway, so my freshman year in high school, I attended speech and drama classes and found out that I had a wonderful outlet for this ADD brain. And I just so fell in love with it. So I started in high school. And then after high school, I went into the Army. When I got out of the Army, I hit the acting thing full force, just ran after it, just true definition of the word passion. I sacrificed everything for wanting to be an actor. Now, it was all about me, though. It was the big head. I had the talent. I had the passion, the drive. I had the skills, etc. And I was going to be the next Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, whatever. That was in my head.
Yep.
Then I met Christ, and the big head and the big heart had a big conflict. So I put it down for a long while. Got myself a quote unquote real job doing IT and digital forensics and things like that. Of course, the standard job for most actors is the waiter in the restaurants. So
Right. I'm just curious, was that part of your work or your training in the Army, or where did that come from?
No, after the Army, I went gung-ho. I went to New York and actually was coached, I guess, by Harold Guskin himself. I read his book, How to Stop Acting, and just loved it. And I went and sought him out, and then teachers here in the Houston area. It used to be a big crowd of film production here in the Houston area, and it kind of fizzled out. It's interesting. It fizzled out after I put it down. So so it didn't break my heart at that point. Now that I'm back into it, it's frustrating. But I just always had that on my heart. I wanted to be an actor.
Yeah. You said you moved into IT and IT forensics. That obviously took some background or some training from somewhere or some point in your life.
That's interesting too. No, that's interesting too. It sounds so, I hate saying this. I have a genius IQ, and most things are easily picked up by me.
Okay.
I went into customer service at a software company and quickly moved into their training facility and got my MCSE, MCSA, MCSD. Oh my gosh. It's also been 25, 30 years since I've had my certifications. Anyway, I did all the certifications for IT in just a matter of about 2 years.
Wow.
And then from there, with that knowledge base, I went into the digital forensics and helped law firms produce digital evidence, if you will.
Yeah.
So process digital evidence, not produce. That's a different thing, huh?
Yeah. Okay, so this was a period of time when you had put down acting, and how long did this stage in your life last?
Let's see, about 15, 18 years,
Okay,
something
a
like
long
that.
time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then I got the calling again. My wife passed away in 2008. And actually, I'll go back a little bit further. Of course, saw Facing the Giants in 2006.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of relit that whole, maybe there is a place then for quality film in the faith-based industry, I guess.
Right.
That we can do this well.
Mm-hmm.
In 2008, my wife passed away. And of course, I was a mess for a little while. And I believe that I got the audible signal, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
that I need to get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then after that, I pursued it kind of halfway because I had my quote unquote real job,
Yeah.
So it was scary. But then eventually in 2016, it became very clear. I mean, billboards type of stuff and notes on my motorcycle from nowhere, just telling me that I need to chase my dreams and to face fear and all that. So it was pretty obvious at that point that God wanted me back into it. And of course, then I jumped back in with both feet, just like I did right after the Army, just running, just going. I quit my job and pursued it 100%.
Awesome.
And I knew that God would take care of me. And he has been so faithful, because I gave up a decent paying job with a steady paycheck to go into the unknown. And God has absolutely answered. So
cool. So from there, tell us about some of the projects that you started working on. I know you're an actor coach, and we'll get into that as well. But what kind of launched your new career in the faith-based arena?
Well, let's see. I figured that one of the best ways to start was to go through something that had some credentials behind it. I joined the AMTC, the Actors, Models, and Talent for Christ, back when it was still going. So I'm an AMTC graduate. And then that helped me kind of get in front of a few people that were pivotal in advancing my career. Some of those have, actually probably most of those, have fizzled out as far as those relationships. But through those relationships and through that experience, I have been able to network and get myself in front of the right people and just loving it.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I have found and I have learned, especially in the kingdom. We find that people that we meet, people that get introduced to us, people that God brings across our path, kind of everything in our lives and our careers depend on it. We depend on each other. And like you said, even when a relationship may end or fizzle out over time, the relationships that came as a result of introductions through that one, it's almost impossible to make all the connections, but you know that one comes from another and one job comes from another. And the more you do, it just keeps rippling out.
Yeah. One of the big things I'd want to tell most actors is that the networking is one of the most important things you can do. Of course, you're building your skill set and you're developing your talent, I guess, whatever, but your networking is paramount. There's that old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, actually, it goes even deeper than that. It's not what you know, and it's not who you know. It's who knows you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've heard that before on this podcast.
Oh, yeah?
It's obviously good advice.
Absolutely develop your skill set. I mean, trust the doctor with the credentials up on the wall instead of the guy who, he's just hung a shingle outside of his office and said, I'll cut you open for nothing. Anyway, so get your training and network, and don't put too much, there's a lot of people that want to meet so-and-so, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know so-and-so, but if so-and-so doesn't really know you, that relationship is completely one-sided.
Right.
So go into your networking and your relationships in the way of what can I do for you instead of what can you do for me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you want to learn from good people. You want to be in the presence of excellence, but we are also here to serve. One of my tenets, I have a little instructional example about teamwork, and that is really what we need to focus on. That we are all supporting actors in someone else's production, whether you're the lead actor or not.
Mm-hmm. In the second half of our interview, which Jacqueline will be doing with you, we're going to get into some specifics of your coaching, maybe some direction, some advice, some of the philosophy behind acting and your approach to acting. But tell us, what are your thoughts on training and talent? I mean, to what degree is talent enough? I know what your answer is going to be, that it's not enough, but tell us about that.
If you have talent for it, then you need to hone that talent. Talent is not enough. Talent with training is so much greater.
Mm-hmm.
It's exponential. It's not even talent times training. It's talent to the training power, I guess. Yes, you need to have talent. There's some things that you should intuitively know as an actor, I guess, but there's psychological blocks that everybody has that we all have to get over, and processes and methods that really, really help hone in on why you're doing what you're doing instead of just to do. It's like, kind of like a woodworker, right? I can go out there in my garage and bring the table saw out and the router and produce something good. It's usable and will last years, etc. But if I don't really know how to use the tools in a way that produces something stronger, deeper, with more flair, I guess, it's not master woodworking. So learning how to use the tools. I don't have a planer. Woodworking is actually kind of my hobby.
Yeah, me too.
I don't have all the tools out there that I've seen in, this old house, nor do I necessarily know how to use them. If I got myself a joiner, I would just kind of look at it for a minute, read the manual and figure it out and struggle with it and eventually figure out how to use the planer. But if someone were to show me how to use a planer, I can learn it 1,000 times faster, right? Yeah. There's the ins and outs. And this is why I think it's really important to get a coach because, you can figure it out. You can get to a point where your skills are honed pretty well, but you will learn a whole lot more and a whole lot more quickly with someone teaching you and showing you, and then immediately critiquing your work, right?
Yeah, immediate feedback.
Yeah.
And of course, if that's all happening faster, then in the meantime, you can also be working.
Right.
Actually getting hired and getting some jobs as opposed to the longer process that you say would come from just trying to figure it out on your own.
Yeah. Don't figure it out on your own. You need training. It's just exponential advancement in your skills. You don't know what you don't know until you get shown, I guess.
Absolutely. That's true in any field, but definitely in this one. And let's talk about it from the aspect of calling, because we are in the area of the industry, of course, and the people we're talking to are in the faith-based film, or faith-based or family-friendly, but most of us work with faith-based content. And you've already mentioned that you've felt this aspect of a calling in your own life.
It kind of goes along the same lines that if you feel God has called you to this, absolutely take it seriously and go get training. It sounds like a pitch for me getting more students, but it's really not. I see there are a lot of people that really want to do good work, but don't have the knowledge base behind it to do the work. I kind of use a parallel with when Moses was given the idea of building the tabernacle. He's never built a tabernacle before, but God said, build me a tabernacle. And, Moses didn't have this vision. Oh, okay, hold on. I'm going to go build you a tent. I'll be right back, right? No, right after that, I think God saw his heart of a little bit of worry, like, I don't know how to do that. God said, don't worry, I'm going to send you Bezalel and Oholiab. They are craftsmen that know exactly what to do. You just give them the plans and the download that I've given you, and we'll all work together to create. Now, Moses got the credit for building the tabernacle.
Right.
I don't know if many people have ever heard of Bezalel and Oholiab. The point is, find people around you who know what they're doing and can teach you or delegate that work to them. So there are filmmakers who have never directed before, never written before. When they write something, then they should find someone who has written and has experience as a screenwriter to critique and give feedback in order to make that project really what God has in plan, right?
Because we've all seen movies where they didn't do that.
Well, yes, and it's evident, and that's kind of the point. I absolutely believe that people are called to this, but they just kind of think they have to do it themselves.
Right.
And you don't. God has provided a Bezalel and a Oholiab for you. Find them.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk for a moment about voice acting. I know it's a big part of what you do. So tell us about your voice acting and also how it fits for you, and perhaps it can for others who are actors.
Well, there's so many different facets to VO.
Of course.
There's movie trailers and anime and narration and what they call industrials, reading medical journals, and,
Yep.
things like that,
Commercials.
audiobooks, et cetera, commercials. I really do believe it helps the actor in a couple different ways. I really believe that you really should be an actor or have actor training before you start doing voiceover. And I'll say that you could probably flip-flop the two because they both have their different benefits, I guess.
Yeah.
When I do my VO, it is basically an exercise in cold reading because I'm not going to read necessarily the medical journal, all 100 pages of it before I start recording. I'm just going to start recording,
Mhm.
right?
Sometimes it's faster to edit when you make a mistake than it is to get it all perfect and then try and record it.
Yeah, right. So it's a great exercise for cold reading. But then with something with characterizations or different voices, then you'll have to develop the character and how to develop the different nuances of how a person speaks or what they
Yep.
want, etc. So it's I guess a give and take as far as which should come first. If you want to do VO, take some acting classes. If you want to be
Right.
an actor, do VO.
Yeah.
How's that?
If you're doing an audiobook, especially if it's a novel, but even if you're narrating or doing a nonfiction, there is a character, even if it's the character that you are portraying as the narrator, it has to be consistent from one day to the next.
Right.
And if you are doing a novel or something where there are literally characters, then there has to be acting involved.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I just got done recording. Got done. It took me almost 2 years.
Wow, big project.
I recorded The Last Good King for David Hyde. He had written a screenplay and then sent it off to be turned into a novel. And then I recorded that book. And of course, there's the narrator.
Yep.
I think we've actually talked about this before, that there's a rhythm and a style that you probably don't get into until chapter 3. And then you got to go back and re-record chapters 1,
Yep.
2, and 3 again, because now you found who the narrator is and their style and their pace and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the narrator is a different character as well. And
Mhm.
there were, I really don't remember, but in the 20s, different characters in this book, mostly male. So I recorded all the male parts, 15 to 17 different male parts with British and Scottish accents. So I had to create a character based on what I thought their personality was like
Mhm.
and their size and, what they look like, the whole deal,
Mhm.
right? I had to create this thing in my head. And I recorded upwards of 20 distinct different people. And so, yeah, that's where I kind of leaned in on my my acting past,
Yeah.
creating characters and becoming each one. I recorded each one separately. So I just basically went through the book as one character and then went back again through the book as the second character and then back through the book again as the third character, etc. And then I shopped out the female voices. It was a big undertaking.
Sounds like
And
it.
then piecing it all back together, it was pretty interesting.
Mhm.
And yes, I would do it again. David asked me, so after all that, would you do that again? I'm like, absolutely. That was so
Mhm.
much fun. It really
Yeah.
was. It was work, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Sounds like an intricate project. So does most of your VO work tend to be audiobooks, or are there other aspects of voiceover that you work on?
No, that audiobook is the only audiobook I've done now, but I've got a few people that are interested in me doing their audiobooks, and that's great. I'm going to jump on that. But trailers, in movie narrator type of thing,
Okay. Yeah.
I always encourage people to use me as a narrator, even if they don't have me a part in their table reads.
Right. That's how you best know Jacqueline, of course. You've been in her table reads.
That's great. I love narrating.
Uh-huh.
Again, it's a lesson in cold read. Years ago, when Bob Hope died,
Mhm.
way back in 93, I think. It was a long time ago. It was over 30 years ago. Anyway, when Bob Hope died, they did a presentation here at the Houston Museum, just honoring his life.
Yeah.
And I sat at a table with, I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy, Charlton Heston.
Yes.
I sat at a table with Charlton Heston in a booth, and we did I think it was an hour of finished recording, but I spent about 3 hours in the booth with the guy
Wow.
and learned a lot from him about voiceover, acting, the whole business, the whole deal. Again, this was before I was a Christian, but I really had a good experience when I first started doing VO. It was a treat. Absolutely. I mean, I was on cloud 9. Walking into the studio, I should say. And I had a better appreciation for what actors generally do. And they're just normal people. Charlton Heston was great and courteous and kind and gentle and just a wonderful person to be around. And it was just a great experience. And it made me fall in love even more with the whole acting thing and the whole voiceover thing, et cetera.
Right. Yeah. Certainly known for his voice.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask, before we move on and finish up this half of our interview, are there any final thoughts that you would like to pass on to actors who may be listening?
I guess my take on the whole thing, again, I want to kind of go back to approach all your relationships. What can I do for you instead of what can you do for me? This business is full of people who are still looking for their own glory, even though we have calling. The whole acting thing can tend to get people puffed up about themselves. So watch the big head.
Yeah.
Focus on the big heart first. Do God's work for God and not for you.
Right.
And also, I guess it doesn't always have to be God glorifying work, but do God honoring work.
Right.
Okay. So you don't necessarily have to focus on always being in a faith-based film. Commercials pay really well, and I'll go sell toothpaste if it doesn't compromise my principles.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
And I guess then that kind of leads into pray about everything. Every time a job comes across my desk, as far as whether I should audition or not, I pray about it first. And not for anything for me, honestly. God, do you want me to do this? And I kind of go over the whole, hey, God, please, get me this job.
Right.
That doesn't even enter it into it anymore, because I found that the purpose that I'm on set is not always, probably 99.999% of the time, it's not me. It's not something for me. It's for someone else.
Right.
Yes, I'm supposed to learn from things. I take all of my failures and all of my non-accomplishments, I guess. I'll call them failures. I really hate the word rejection, by the way, in this business. Anyway, my non-accomplishments, or what I thought I was going to get out of it, as what am I supposed to learn from this? And how am I supposed to use that to equip someone else later? Again, it's not focused on me. I really do believe, we're called to be disciples. Yes, we're supposed to be Christians making Christians. But I kind of bring that into the film industry, as a disciple is someone who learns, and making a disciple is someone who teaches. So we should always be learning, reaching forward, and we should always be teaching, reaching back. So get into the habit of giving something to someone else, and quit focusing on what it's going to do for you.
Good advice. Before we go, tell people how they can find you, people who may be listening that would like to utilize your services as a coach. How would they go about doing that?
So at the time of this recording, my rates are $60 an hour for coaching, private coaching, or I sell 5-hour blocks for $250 and then 10-hour blocks for $450. So it actually decreases. They could be used at any time. They can contact me directly. I'm sure you'll have my information.
I will. We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. My email address or my phone number. Call me or text me directly, or email me directly. I do virtual Zoom meetings with training. I live in Houston, and I told you earlier that the film scene here is just kind of bleak. I do most of my training online, or I also teach at ICFF, Content Media Conference. I'm hoping to teach at some other conferences as well. But yeah, you can contact me directly. I'm totally up for it.
Cool. Well, we'll make sure we get that stuff in the show notes. So if you want to contact John, make sure you take a look at the show notes and find his contact information. John, it's been great talking to you. Good to see you again. And Jacqueline's going to step in for part 2 of this interview. And we'll all be looking forward to hearing what you've got to say to actors.
Thank you, Jeff. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Faith and Family Filmmakers podcast. If you would like email reminders about newly released episodes and more, please sign up at faffpodcast.com/email. That's faffpodcast.com/email. Bringing filmmakers together for faith and family.
That's a wrap.